Good evening. We have a new time slot just for today for a very special guest. Rob Preuss is here. This is so exciting. Many of you know Rob from The Spoons. You may know him from Honeymoon Suite. Well, let me tell you, he has done a lot in his career, and we're going to dive right into it. I cannot wait to introduce Rob to you. Before we get started, though, I want to show you my outfit of the day. Now, usually I'm wearing all Brenda Badome. I do have Brenda Badome on. She is our show sponsor, Canadian, amazing. Go to her website, brendabadome.com. Use the coupon code Get to Know Them, and you will receive 22% off of your order. But I also wore for the occasion my most vintage t-shirt. This is my Hall & Oates concert t-shirt from 1983. I'm going to get into that story with Rob. There's a reason for the shirt. And the other show sponsor, of course, is my small business, Glam Jewels. If you want to check us out, we are at Glam Jewels, GLAMJULZ.com. You can check out our jewelry there. I broadcast once a week from my studio here in Burlington, Ontario. The show is called Get to Know Them, and it is a show where I bring on my most favorite, most inspiring people that I know in hopes that I will inspire you in turn. So let's not wait. I want to introduce Rob to you. I'm going to read you his bio, and there's going to be so many things here that will probably be new to you. So originally from Burlington, Ontario, Canada, Rob began playing piano at the age of 5. He joined his first rock band at age 10, and when he was 15, he joined Burlington new wave band The Spoons. They became a sensation all throughout Canada with several top 40 hits and 2 gold records. After leaving The Spoons, he joined the band Honeymoon Suite, and they went on to win a Juno Award and toured through North America, Europe, and Asia. Rob's love of all types of music led him to musical theater, where at the age of 23, he began playing piano and keyboard for many shows, including Phantom of the Opera, Beauty and the Beast, Tommy, Miss Saigon, Starlight Express, and Blood Brothers. Rob spent 15 years playing and conducting the ABBA musical Mamma Mia in Toronto, Los Angeles, and on Broadway, where he was also the associate musical supervisor of Once the Musical, which won a Grammy Award for Best Musical Theater Album in 2013. Rob was a piano coach to the actor Rami Malek, helped him prepare for his Academy Award winning role as Freddie Mercury in the film Bohemian Rhapsody. Today, Rob is developing several new music projects, including live performances, solo recordings, and ongoing collaborations with a variety of singers and musicians, including Carol Pope from Rough Trade, The Foreign Films, and Church of Trees. What a rock star. I have loved this guy since the Spoons days. Nova Heart set my 14-year-old heart on fire, and I'm so happy to introduce Rob Preuss to all of you.
Guten Abend.
Yay! Guten Abend.
Wie geht's,
Wie
Monica?
geht's mir ganz gut. I'm
Gut,
so
ich auch.
happy. Yeah, I have to practice my Deutsch with you.
Me too. Well, I
He,
don't. Yeah, me
he,
too.
you know what? I did a crazy thing over the pandemic, Rob. I decided to stop drinking alcohol,
Yes.
and that was the one thing that helped the German flow. So I don't know what I'm going to do now next time I go visit there.
Stopping alcohol helped the German flow?
No, drinking alcohol helped it. So I don't know what it's
Oh,
going to
yeah,
be
yeah. I was
like
going to
to
say,
go back
yeah.
to Germany.
Beer is like the water of Germany, right? It's like,
I know.
that's
Yeah. Yeah, it totally is. It totally is the water
so
of
funny.
Germany. So Rob, I wanted to start off by saying I'm so honored to be here, and I wanted to make special mention to your dear dad. I know you've had a hard week losing your father, and wow, what a guy. I mean, what you wrote on Facebook, I was just like, what an incredible human being. And he
Thank you.
raised
He really was.
such, yeah.
Well, it turned into it turned into sort of a eulogy, I guess, because it was just sort of me, um, I had all these memories of him and what he meant to me in my life, and sort of putting them together. once I started, I kind of couldn't stop, and it just kind of kept going and going. But we had some
Yeah.
relatives and some friends sort of mentioned to me, oh, it was like a eulogy, like you could almost have read it out loud, which I don't think I would have been
Yeah.
able to get through reading it out loud. So it's nicer
Yeah.
to just have it, written like that. But yeah, I was just trying to like think of like the memories, in that way. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was really great. It was perfectly
thank you.
written and yeah. And the first question I always ask my guests is, what did little Rob want to be when he grew up? Which we kind of know from your bio, but I thought maybe you could take us through that and talk a little bit about your dad in there because he
Yeah,
was
sure.
such a big influence. Yeah.
Well, he was, because he was a musician, and my mom met my dad in Germany, and then they fell in love, and then they decided to get married,
Yeah.
and they came back to Burlington. So my dad was all excited to like leave and like sort of go on this exotic adventure to Canada.
Yeah.
Um, so his family was still in Germany, of course, in Munich, mostly in the Munich area. So he hustled off to Burlington to get married to my mom, and they got married at St. Raphael's Church in Burlington. And his side of the church was empty because nobody came over from Germany. There was like nobody representing my dad.
Oh,
But so they got married, and he was a musician in Germany. Like I have these great old photos of him playing guitar and like rock and roll bands, and like it looks like big bands, sort of like there were saxophones and stuff. It looks sort of like a Ricky Ricardo kind of a big band thing. So music was always in my life growing up. Like as a little kid, we had his music, and my mom, she didn't play music, but she listened to the radio and she loved music. And then my grandfather bought a piano for my dad when I was like 5, because my dad played a little bit because he studied opera in Germany, and so he could play a little bit. But my grandfather thought, we'll just have a piano in the house. So I sort of started plunking away. My parents found a teacher for me when I was 5, and I guess they always tell the story that it was hard to find a teacher who was going to take a 5-year-old, because nothing is formed at 5,
yeah.
like. But we found this lady who lived over just off Brant Street, and she was willing to take me on, and I studied with her for like 12 years. She was really
Wow.
my primary piano teacher through my formative years. And once I got into the spoons, I was still going to her for lessons and stuff as well. So yeah, I started piano when I was like 5.5, and yeah, and the music was just in our life, like the widest variety of music, because my dad loved, it was like Sing 108 or one of those. I think it was the 108 channel, right? Which played
Yes, that's
Sunday
right.
afternoons. They'd
Oh,
have their Italian show, but the morning was the German show, right? And so
yeah.
that was always cranking through our house. And I learned
Oh
to
my
love it
God,
because
us
I couldn't
too.
turn it off.
Yes, you totally triggered a memory. I forgot all about that. And my parents, I bet our parents even met because my parents would go to those dances and
Oh yeah. Well,
the
my dad was
108.
on that TV show on
Yeah.
Crozet, so they would
Oh
film it
God.
in Hamilton at the Narragonia Club on King Street. And they filmed it, I think, like once a week or once every couple of weeks or something. But I went to a taping
Mhm.
once. But then my parents belonged to a German club out in Brantford. There was a club out. Oh,
Yeah.
Narragonia was the club out there. In Hamilton, it was I can't remember the name of it. Um,
Yeah.
but anyways, they were like
Yeah.
for years and years members of this club in Brantford, which was like a big serious deal as well. And they wore like these fancy jackets, and it was like one of those. It was like like Fred
Oh
Flintstone with the
yeah.
Water Buffalo Club, the hat and the like all the stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. And your dad was from Munich, correct?
Well, he was
Is that what
born in the
or
north. I believe he was born like in the
oh,
Berlin. He mentions this little town that I can never remember the name of, but it was, I
yeah.
think, near Berlin. So for the first few years of his life, he lived near Berlin, and then they had to emigrate. They had to leave Berlin during the war, and they came down
Right.
to Munich, and then he lived the rest of
Okay.
his life.
That's interesting. My dad has the same story, born in Berlin and then they
Yeah.
went to Cologne. Yeah.
Oh wow, nice.
So yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so interesting. So
Yeah.
I can't even imagine, Rob, you at 5.5 on the piano. Like, were you, was it like just in you that you really wanted to do this, or were your parents pushing you, or are your
They
memories of that like I want to,
they
yeah.
never pushed me.
Hmm.
But it was just something that I think I wanted to do, and found, and because I was tuning in to the world around me, and I had some records. I had, like, by that time I was already a huge Partridge Family fan, and I was a
Okay.
huge, like, I had a Sesame Street album,
Yeah.
and I was definitely tuning into the sound of the radio because my mom had the radio on all the time. Like whether it
Mhm.
was in the summertime in our backyard or just playing in the kitchen, it was always CKOC, the Hamilton station.
Yes.
Um, so the music was just around. So the piano became sort of an extension, I think, of me listening to music and just loving the music that was around me. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, because like the first thing I ever played on the piano was the theme for the Banana Splits. Dun, dun, dun,
Oh,
dun, 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 dun. Which is pretty easy for anybody, for even a 5-year-old, if you know, like to
yeah.
find the first note, and then if you find the relationship, I sort of figured it out like kind of quickly. Um,
Right.
but I think those first few years of studying when you're 5, I mean, it was,
It,
very rudimentary, elementary stuff like learning the names of the notes on the piano. And I mean, my teacher was fantastic in that way that she took me slowly through it all. But eventually I got into the Royal Conservatory books just to take the
Mhm.
graded examinations as well. But yeah, music was just all around. Like that's sort of just the
Yeah.
thing. Like it was just a part of my world. So it became a
And
natural extension.
yes, and that write-up you did about your dad, I loved when you mentioned Lawrence Welk. Like I remember watching that at my
Yeah.
Oma's,
Oh
and the
yeah.
bubbles and oh my God, it was so good.
They loved
Like
all
we
that
were
stuff.
so lucky, eh? When you think of
Yeah.
Sonny and Cher and the Tom Jones, like all of these performers, even
Yep.
watching Solid Gold, like when we got
For sure.
older.
Well, we
Yeah.
grew up
It,
in that it was an era that was transitioning from the 60s into the 70s into the 80s. But for me, I don't know if you're probably young, you definitely younger than I am.
I'm born in 69. What year are you born?
65.
Okay, perfect. We're like, yeah.
So it's our
So you
generation.
were in grade 13 when I was in grade 9.
I
There
never
you
went
go.
to I never went to grade 13.
Oh, you didn't? Well, you were with the spoons.
Well, I
You didn't
started
have
grade.
to.
I finished grade 12, and that was the
Hmm.
year we released Nova Heart, and that summer we were recording arias and symphonies, and then I came back to grade 13 for like 2 weeks, and we had
Yeah.
already booked this fall tour, and we were going to be going across Canada and down into the States and stuff. And I was like, I don't think I could do grade 13, so I never finished grade 13. So I got my grade 12 diploma like a year later, but I had
Yeah.
intentions to go to grade 13, but I just never did.
Right. Oh
So
God. So you got to tell us like the spoons thing and 15 years old. I can't even imagine how, from your perspective, like how all of this came to be and how you met the band. It's
um,
just amazing. So
it,
they were already started, right? They
yeah,
had started in 1980.
yeah.
Is that
They
right?
started in
Yeah. Or
79.
oh, 79. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think their first gig was December of 79. So it was like a year before I joined. So they were together about a year. And
Okay.
I had heard of them because of my friend who lived a couple doors down, his older brother was a friend of the Spoons manager at the time. And I
Ah,
was into all the new wave music when I was 14. And this was the first time there was a local band because I was listening to all the
yeah.
British Boomtown Rats and Gary Newman and Ultravox and whatever was around. But all of a sudden,
Mhm.
my friends started saying, "Oh, yeah, there's this band in Burlington called the Spoons." And I didn't know who they were. And so his brother had a cassette, like a live recording, I think, that we had listened to some of the songs. And then they released a single in the summer of 79, or it was in the summer of 80. Now I can't remember.
Okay.
But I saw them play a couple of times. I first met them in Hamilton. I went to see XTC play in Hamilton Place, and Gordon Sandy and their old keyboard player were there. So I met them. I was, yeah, like 14 at that time when I met them, and just in passing with my friend and his brother or whatever. Um, and then I saw them play in Hamilton the last day of school when I was in finishing grade 10, I guess. I think
Mhm.
so. And then I went to see them play in Hamilton, opening for Martha and the Muffins. And I took
Oh,
the bus into Hamilton they played I think it was called the Delta Theater. I don't know what it is now. Um, and then I saw them play again in November. They played the Burlington Central Library, which I was just there last week, and I went and looked on the main floor. There's a room. It's called Centennial Hall, and
yeah.
there's a little stage in there, and that's where I also saw Billy Van, who was the main actor on the hilarious House of Frightenstein. I'd seen him in this little room when I was like 8 years old, and I got his autograph and stuff. But then in
Wow.
1980, the Spoons played there, and I met them again at this show. And like a week later,
Mhm.
their keyboard player quit the band. And so Gord put an ad in the Hamilton Spectator, And because I'd already been a fan of the band and I had posters on my wall in my bedroom, like I'd not been to many of their gigs, but every time they played a show at a club in Toronto, they'd make these little flyers that you'd paste up, on telephone poles and stuff.
Yeah.
So I had a collection of them already on my wall in my bedroom. Like every Spoons gig was on my wall. It was the weirdest thing.
Wow.
So I
That's
saw the
amazing. Like you
Yeah.
manifested this. It was like in the
sort of.
works.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess sort of. So I came home from school one day and I would always check the Spectator for the teens band section. I'd tried like a couple of times to put ads in there myself. Like I wanted to put together like a band to do electronic music with like Gary Newman and stuff, but nobody called because I don't know. Nobody was into it.
Yeah.
But I opened it up one day and all the ad said was Spoons require keyboardist. Call this number. And I freaked out. Like I couldn't believe it. Like I thought, are you kidding me? So I called and it was Gord and I said, I'm Rob. And he sort of remembered me because they sort of knew that I was this kid who had these keyboards. And I had met Gord these other times, but he had also come over to do a little recording in my basement too. It's like all a weird meant to be sort of thing,
Yeah.
So I went to their rehearsal space and brought my synth and I learned a couple of songs off this tape. And then I never left. Like I just kept my synth there. And then we ended up doing our first gig like a couple of weeks later. It was only about 2 weeks. Couldn't have been, 2 weeks. Because the gig that I saw them with their old keyboard player was November the 21st, 1980. I'm like Rain Man with my dates and stuff. Like,
That's amazing.
So
yeah.
stupid. So it was November 21st. My first gig with the band was December 8th, 1980, which was the night that John Lennon was killed.
Oh God.
It was like that like weird sort of karmic thing happening. Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah, that was grade 6 for me.
Was it? Yeah.
So yeah, you know how you can those moments you remember where you were and all of that.
Yep.
So Rob, look, being 15 years old, and all of a sudden you're in this band that's like growing exponentially. Like I always think the Spoons is internationally the most underrated new wave band in the world. Like you guys were so good, and the
Thank you.
band is still amazing. I just feel like it should have been as bigger than Duran Duran. Like I was laughing seeing those guys now. I'm like, has anyone had a drink of water since 1985? They look pretty dehydrated.
It's hard. I mean, it's hard. It's hard for musicians and rock musicians to age like gracefully, because you have to make a decision about like, are you going to keep playing a role that you played when you were in your 20s, or are you going to just like get older and say, I'm older, but it's more about the music than anything else? And I think every generation has to sort of navigate through it, So like the guys in Duran Duran, to me, they still look pretty cool, but there are definitely some photos where I think, oh, you sort of look like the Golden Girls. Like there's too much teasing of your hair.
That's right. What is that? I don't get that.
But they look great. To me, they look great and they sound fantastic still. So I forgive everything that they've done. Like everything they try to do, because it's a never ending and it's an always shifting sort of a process to go through, Like I bleach my hair blonde sometimes and then I let it go and I got like lots of gray coming in and I want to cut it and I want to grow it. And I can't pretend that I have any sort of like concerns that I had when I was 15 or 16 or 17 in the 80s, because it just doesn't matter. Like we're all older, so
we're all older, but to me, you guys, all of you guys still look fresh, and you look like you've taken care of yourself over the years. So
I guess sure.
So speaking of hair, I have to share a couple of stories. So I have a couple of fans who have input some stories that I wanted to share with you.
Okay, cool.
And, and then so I wanted to share my story with you, which was in grade 9.
Yes.
At
what high school?
At Blakelock High School.
Oh yeah, I remember Blakelock.
In Oakville.
In Oakville.
In
that's
Oakville,
right.
West End, like 4th Line and Rebecca kind of area.
Yeah. Did we play at that high school?
No, I don't think you ever played Blakelock unless you did it before I was there. You played Oakville Trafalgar High School.
I remember that for sure.
Yeah. And maybe did you play Queen Elizabeth? I don't know.
I'm sure we did. I feel like we played every single high school in Ontario.
Okay. Well, if anybody is watching from Blakelock and you remember, let us know. But yes. So I was in grade 9, so that would have been 1983.
Okay.
And I was looking at hairstyles, right? And for girls, we were looking to Duran Duran, all these like new wave hairdos. I didn't want a girl's hairdo. I wanted a guy's hairdo. So I remember bringing a picture to a hairdresser and she gave me a perm and
Okay.
I ended up with this horrible curly perm and it was just
But all permed
devastating.
like
The
all
worst,
around.
like all on top, short at the back, terrible, worst hair ever. And then I went to Magic Cuts and I go there and the hairdresser who I choose is blonde. She's got the hair over the eye, like exactly what I want, right?
Yeah.
So I said, I want her to cut my hair. I sit in the chair and there's a picture of this very handsome young man with the swoop hair. And I said, that guy is cool. Who is that? That's who I want my hair like. She goes, oh my God, that's the guy I'm in love with. That's Rob Preuss from the Spoons.
Really?
And
What?
her name was Sue Schmidt. I don't know if she's still cutting hair. She would have
Wow.
been 10 years older than me. And
Okay.
she was so in love with you. And she goes, okay, we're going to relax this perm out. We're going to put some blonde in. She gave me like a rat tail.
Wow.
And I went to school going, I have the Rob Preuss.
Ah, that's amazing. I wonder
So
what hair.
yeah,
I mean, I liked having the bangs all the time. I always thought
yeah, you
when I
had
first
like
grew the
some,
bangs, and I always thought when I
yeah.
was on stage and I was looking at my keyboard and my hair was in my eyes, so I thought, well, nobody can see me because I can't see them. So that's what I liked. That's why I like the bangs. So
Yeah, kind of cut mysterious look, right? Yeah. So I also got a lovely text from a woman I know, Cheryl. She's a couple of years younger than me, I think. And she was talking about a memory of when you guys were touring around St. Catharines and playing all the high schools out
yep,
that way.
yep.
And you came to her school and she said Rob was so nice. He actually came out and talked to some of us kids. And you were wearing, remember those black rubber
Yeah, I wore tons of those things.
bracelets?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she said, so he had them, tons of them on his wrist. And she said he actually gave me one and it smelled like his cologne. And I'd
Ooh.
like wear it and smell it for weeks. And then
Really?
I don't know if you remember this. We had a little text a while ago about
Yeah.
cologne and I brought it.
4711. Of course I
Is
remember
that what
that.
you were wearing? Yeah.
I don't know if I was wearing it in the 80s, but my aunt, my Oma and my aunts in Germany, like it was always the thing, right? And we'd always get like a little
Yeah,
bottle for Christmas in like a package of
that's
all the
right.
other stuff. But
Yeah.
when I was in Cologne in 2007, I was amazed to like there's like actual just 4711 shops. It's
Yeah.
everything 4711. But I love that smell. Like it's like fresh, right?
It's like lemony fresh. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the smell of
Yeah.
Germany.
It is the smell of Germany. And you remember the tiny little bottles, the
Yep.
teeny tiny
The
ones?
teeny ones.
That's what
Yep.
they use at Carnival. They throw them out to people and
Amazing.
yeah,
I
yeah,
love it.
yeah. So cool. I actually met a woman in Florida. She was in her 70s, I think, Italian, and she said that one of her first jobs when she was 13 or 14 years old, she went to Cologne and she was putting the screw caps on those little bottles. That was like one of her
Really?
first jobs and
Oh wow.
probably somewhere in the 1940s or 50s. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's got a history, right? Like I mean, it's this
Yeah.
timeless thing, and I always love that kind of stuff. Like things that just carry on. The tradition carries on through generations, and it's like this age old thing that people still love. And
Yeah.
I think I just love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's
Yep.
great. Yeah. So there, and then I have another fan thing, Sharon Caddy. She used to be a news broadcaster with CTV in the 90s and 2000s.
Yeah.
Anyway, she just posted the other day on her Facebook a picture of her Miss Teen Hamilton 1980 with
Oh,
new wave band The Spoons
I
playing. So that
saw
was
that.
another thing.
That was just before
Yeah.
I joined, and I actually remember that happening. I probably read something about it in the newspaper as well, because I think in those days there weren't many things happening for the Spoons in terms of like media coverage. But I remember that
Yeah.
Robinsons thing for sure, because Sandy's dad was like one of the head honchos at Robinsons, so he was always trying to help us out.
Ah,
Even once I was in the band, we would do lots of
yeah.
record signings at Robinsons at the mall and in Hamilton as well. So
That's so great. I love it.
mhm.
Oh, that's so cool. And May Potts, she wanted me to say hello to you and
Ah, nice.
just to say, God, he's so talented and such a nice guy. And so my segue into nice guys, I also got a text today from Andrew Webb, who used to be in my friend Steve Egger's band, The Nines,
Oh,
and
nice.
he posted us like an acoustic piece that he had done for The Nines, and he said, "Rob is so nice." He actually made a comment and said, "What a beautiful tune." And
I
so
remember that.
I thought it was important just to share with you how loved you are and
Thank
all these
you.
special memories that people have of you, you
Love it.
know?
I mean, the
Yeah,
world of social media is fantastic for this very reason, like that it keeps us all connected together, right? And I feel
it does.
like especially for me with the Spoons, the legacy of the band, and with Honeymoon Suite as well. Um, it's so cool to just reconnect or connect for the first time with people who love the music that we
Yeah,
made, because like always loved doing record signings and things to just meet everybody, because basically everybody was around my age, right? Like
yeah,
Gordon, Sandy, and Derek aren't that much older than me, but in at that time it was just enough that I was like 16 or 17 or 18, and our fans were still 19, 18, 17, 16 and down. So I could
yeah.
relate to everybody, really. And it was always so exciting to meet people who were like devoted to our music. I thought it was the coolest, weirdest thing, because I felt the same way for the music that I loved as well. As a fan, since I was, 8 or 9 years old, obsessed with Elton John and obsessed with Queen and everything, I know what
Yeah.
it feels like to recognize a connection through a musician and the music that you're listening to. Like, it's always been an important thing to me to share that.
Oh, I love that. And I think, when I go to your Facebook page, you can really feel that you've grown up with your fans. And
Hmm.
and even that, like some of the conversations you guys have, like it's so Gen X. It's like a Gen
It
X
is.
wonderland on
I
your
know.
Facebook.
Totally. And we go through all
Like
the generations. But the cool thing too is like our generation, we get all the good stuff. Like we come
mhm,
from our parents, the stuff that our parents got, which was, the beginnings of rock and roll. Like I think of my dad and my mom had her old tattered copy of Elvis Presley's first album, because when he first came out, my mom was like 15 or 16. So
yeah,
she is like, and my dad was 17, right? Like this is the rock and roll era. So we've grown up with our parents, that generation, and we've come into the 60s music and the Beatles and whatever, and then the 70s and all that stuff. And then I
yeah,
get to be a part of that scene through the 80s of like making this new kind of music as well. And now we've all grown up with it keeps accumulating, right? It's like none of it goes away. It just keeps on piling up and piling up. And we get to enjoy
right.
all of it together. And I think we're the luckiest ones, because like kids today, they got everything and they're cynical about it, because they're like, I don't
Yeah.
really care, because it's all old now and nothing matters. And so let me go to
Yeah.
TikTok and let me go to Instagram, whatever. And some of them will discover
Yeah.
stuff, but we're definitely the fortunate bunch, because we saw the beginnings of it, and we've
Yeah.
seen how it can become a thing that doesn't mean as much to people, because it doesn't have to, like, but there's still going
Yeah.
to be people to discover the music from all the eras, because I feel like the era of rock and roll, which we could say goes between 55 and like the 2000s, when it was really like still groundbreaking things happening, that era
Mhm.
is now going to be like when people talk about the classical music era of Haydn and Mozart and Beethoven, and there was like groundbreaking stuff happening that changed the world of music. And it feels so weird that it's a small era of time, but that's just the reality of everybody was feeding off everybody else.
Yeah, that's
So
so true. I know sometimes I think about kids now and they don't have that same experience we had where it was like, remember even listening to CFNY, you'd hear a song and it was so exciting because you may not hear it again the next day or even the next week. Like there was this like influx of alternative music. And then
yeah.
we didn't have the recording devices you have now. Like,
I know.
we'd
Yeah,
jam our tape recorder up to the radio and then
totally.
tell
Oh
our
yeah.
family to shut the hell up because we're
Yeah.
trying to tape a
I used
song.
to
And,
record stuff off
you
the
know,
TV as well. Like I still have somewhere an old cassette recording from Walter Cronkite narrating when Apollo Soyuz was happening in 1975, and it was like the meeting of the Russian cosmonauts and the American astronauts joining together. And thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And I had my little cassette recorder, like just held it up to the TV to like just record the sound of what was happening.
yeah,
Like you just want to capture these moments. But yeah, like the CFNY
yeah,
era too. You're right. Like
yeah,
groundbreaking, but you couldn't capture it. You had to just sort of take it in. And then if it really meant something to you, you never forgot it. It stayed
Yeah.
within you. That was our device to capture, was our mind, really, and our heart.
That's right. Yes, it's so true. And now all these songs like the Spoons, it's so triggering. This morning I ran into a woman at she works at Metro and she's, in
Mhm.
our age bracket. And she says, "How's your show going? Who have you got coming up?" I said, "Actually, Rob Preuss tonight from the Spoons." "Would I know the Spoons?" And I go, "Arias and Symphonies." She goes, "Oh my God, I have to watch this." Like she was so
Wow,
happy, it's
that's
just
cool.
like this trigger, and that there's memories flooding in as soon as you mention those songs, right?
For sure. We were part of a
Yeah,
mix. I mean, it's funny because we're a part of that mixture, and to me it's still crazy. Like there's a couple of Facebook pages that will post old charts, and they'll like old CKOC charts and chum charts. And
yeah,
I love seeing the charts from the 70s, from when I was really little, because that was when I listened to music and it was starting to just get in me all the time. And then when they every once in a while will post an 80s chart and there were on the charts. And I think it's so weird because I look at all
yeah,
the other music and go, oh my God, this chart is so cool. Like, look at there's Hall and Oates and there's Irene Cara
yeah.
and there's Duran Duran and there's Huey Lewis and there's whatever. And then, oh geez, we're there too. It's weird. Like,
I
to me,
know.
that's the weirdest part, because to me, I never thought of it in that way, because we were just doing what we did and we happened to be
Yeah,
on the charts at the same time. Like it wasn't like it wasn't super conscious that that was just a part of what we were doing. Like, oh yeah, we're making a new record and it's getting airplay, and it was sort of like
mm,
the business of the band in that way. But then
right.
from 40 years later, I look at it and go, man, we were like really in like like it was like an honor to be a part of that thing,
Yeah.
but we were just excited to be able to make the music that we were making anyways. So
Yeah, but you were real pioneers in that new wave scene. I think you had so many original sounds, and there was so
we
much
liked,
happening there that was like, what? They're from Burlington?
I
There's no
know,
way
right?
they're from And I mean, that doesn't mean anything where you're from, but it just the
But it's
sound was
true.
like, okay, they must be from Europe or,
Right. And I guess we were lucky
yeah.
because we weren't part of a scene like it's interesting to me now to see a lot of people who were more based in Toronto at that time reflecting on what was going on in the Toronto music scene. And I never felt like we were really part of a Toronto music scene, because whenever somebody would say, here's a band from Canada, if they ever said we were from Toronto, we would be like, no, we're from Burlington, damn it. Because we never, I mean, I love Toronto, but we
Uh-huh.
always sort of thought of ourselves as outsiders in that way, because we didn't hang out with a lot of other musicians in that way. And every time we came into Toronto, it still felt like we're adventuring into this territory that's like, oh my God, you're going to let us come in and play? Like, this is amazing for us as well,
Wow.
So I
So
think,
humble.
and I
Yeah.
guess maybe having that bit of an outsider's perspective allowed us to not think too hard about trying to fit in with some other group of people who were all influencing each other in a way. We were taking our
Yeah.
influence just from the music that was all around us, which would have been
Yeah.
music from Toronto or music from England or from Germany or from America, whatever it was.
Yeah. God, that's
So,
great. So Rob, I'm curious to know your departure from the Spoons and moving into Honeymoon Suite. What's that story? How did that
um,
happen?
I just kind of got bored, like in the
Yeah.
band, like really.
Yeah.
I had been in the band for, it was 5 years at that point, and
Mm-hmm.
we were we had gone through all the successes that we had had, but then there got to a point that we were kind of touring a lot, and
Yeah.
we had management, we had gotten rid of management, we were trying to get new management happening, and the record company stuff was a little bit up in the air because we had distribution, and we had signed with an American record label that didn't release our album Talk Back, and we were like, well, what's wrong with Talk Back? And they didn't see a single to release. And then we went back in the studio and recorded Romantic Traffic and Tell No Lies, which ended up being like good sort of songs for us for airplay in Canada. But I think the American label just sort of, like, I don't know, like they changed, when personnel change in a company, sometimes things get lost in the shuffle and stuff. So
Yeah.
I don't really know what it was, but all I know is we spent a lot of our time just kind of touring a lot, which was good for us to sort of meet fans and do all that kind of stuff. But I just sort of started to get a little restless. And so I left the band. Derek and I left the band at the same time, which was in early 86.
Mhm.
And I was nervous because I thought, I don't really know what I'm going to do. Like, I just feel like I need to get away from it in order to get to the next step. And I didn't know what the step
Yeah.
was going to be. And I had started writing some songs on my own, and I had made a few demos on my own. And I kind of thought, well, maybe I'll do some kind of a solo thing, which I never ended up doing because I didn't have enough, and I was still a little unsure of what that even meant because I wasn't really singing at that point. So I sort of like floated around for a while, and then like into the year, like 9 months later, I got a call to audition for Honeymoon Suite, like sort of out of the blue. I knew one of their managers at that point, and I think they knew that I was not in the Spoons anymore, and their keyboard player had just left the band. So they were making calls to audition for somebody because they were in the middle of like a whirlwind tour. They had just released their second album, The Big Prize, and they had a couple of singles like Feel It Again was a pretty big hit in Canada. And I think What Does It Take had come out as well. So they were riding this wave of like, this is our second album. And it's, the first album had already done huge sales and they were breaking into the States and stuff. So they took some time off the road and they auditioned over this weekend. And so when I got the call, I kind of thought, oh, I sort of like, I knew who they were, of course, because I had seen their songs on the radio and stuff. And I kind of thought, oh, it might be cool to like play this band's music because they had Ray Coburn, their original keyboard player, had like all these cool keyboard parts and stuff. And so I thought this might be actually like, if I'm not doing anything else, I'm just sort of hanging around. What the heck?
Yeah.
I might as well like try to like do a good job for this band. So the tour manager said, he gave me a list of songs that they were playing and like 13 songs. And he said, like, learn like 3 or 4 songs for your audition and come in and we'll, see how it goes. So then I got it. I wrote down all the songs and I got it in my mind. I thought, I'm going to learn all the songs. So over this week, it was like a weekend.
There's the German work ethic again.
It was like my inspiration because I sort of got it in my mind thinking that I started thinking this might be like a really cool thing to do. And I don't know if I'm going to get the gig or not, but I'm going to go, like I had nothing else to do. I thought I'm going to just learn all these songs. I made little charts in a little notebook and I programmed all my keyboards and found all as close as I could. I listened to the records and I tried to get all the sounds. And then I went to this audition in Mississauga and took my dad's station wagon and loaded all my keyboards into the station wagon. And I met the guys and I wasn't starstruck because like I knew who they were from their videos and stuff, but it's always cool to meet other people that you've seen on TV and heard their music, right? Like even for me, like after being in the Spoons and stuff, still it's always exciting to meet other musicians and all that, because I feel like, oh, I'm a professional. So I'm going to show up and I'm going to like do a good job. And they asked me if I could sing and I said, sure, I sing, which I hadn't really sung in the Spoons at all, but I had done a little singing when I was like working on my own songs and stuff. So they showed me some harmonies that I tried as well. And they said, okay, what songs did you learn? And I said, well, I learned all the songs. So they said, really? Because I think they'd been telling everybody to learn 3 or 4 songs. And so I said, yeah, sure, pick one. So then I went into my little notebook and I found the song. And so it worked out. And so like another day or so went by and they said, okay, we'll use you for the rest of this tour or whatever. It's sort of like a conditional thing. You can join the band. I thought, great, whatever. So then like 4 days later was my first show with them opening for Journey in Kansas City. Like, boom, right onto this moving train because they had sort of paused. They were on the road in the States. They had been on the road like through the year. They were opening for Heart and they had done some shows with ZZ Top and 38 Special. So they were just, the best thing you can do when you're trying to get into a new market is just open for other bands and let their audience see you because then they're like, oh, who's this opening band? I don't know who it is. So they had these dates booked with Journey already. So fortunately for me and for them, I knew enough songs. They were like, sure, let's go with Rob. So 4 days later, they packed up all my keyboards into these road cases and they took it all away. And they're like, okay, you're on the tour. So
great. What an experience.
Yeah. So it was this whirlwind that just never stopped because from that point we did the dates with Journey. And then they had some of their own shows booked in some smaller places in northern states as well. And then from that point, it was like a whirlwind that just never ended because they were able to finish the year. And we did a Much Music Live big ticket thing out in Halifax. And they had a Canadian East Coast tour that was already booked as well. And we went to Japan for like a week and did this song festival thing. And then there was the Juno Awards. So I got to play with them on the Junos and I won a Juno Award, which I felt guilty about because I was like, I just joined the band. It's weird. And so they were like, well, yeah, but you're in the band now. So you'll earn your Juno Award. So,
okay. Yeah. That's fantastic. Wow.
So it was like it felt like getting onto a moving train, but I was ready for it because I felt like my years of experience with the Spoons sort of had already prepared me for what they were going through, but they were going through it at a little bit of a higher level because they had real involvement with their American record company, because they really felt like they wanted to try to break them in America as well. So they were really
Yeah.
supportive of all the work they were doing, and the band was willing to just work. So we were just on the road, and I loved it. Like I had just turned 21. So yeah, it was cool.
Oh, that's perfect. I was gonna say perfect age for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever play the Key to Bala with Honeymoon Suite?
Yes, we did.
Yes, I was at that show.
Were you
Okay.
really?
I
Oh,
thought
that's amazing.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
'Cause
was
I
in,
was
that would have
I'm
been like maybe 88-ish,
yeah.
88, 80, 87, 88, I think, like around that time for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, because I think I was just 19, like I was
Really?
just
Or
getting
you
out to
said you
the
were
yeah.
19.
I said, yeah, fake ID. Shh. That was
I
so
know, of
easy to make fake ID back then.
course.
Damn, can't do that anymore either.
That's
Well,
right. Oh, well, my niece is 17. She's got pretty good fake ID as well. But
yeah,
I don't know how they do it, but yeah, the kids still find a way.
they find a way. Okay, that's good.
Yep. Yep.
Well, so Rob, I don't know if you can tell us anything about it, but I saw that February 23rd you're going to be back in town uh at the Moonshine Cafe,
Yep.
and it says Rob Preuss with friends.
Yep.
Can you
It,
elaborate on it, or is that still under wraps until further notice?
oh no, it's not really under wraps.
It's a okay.
No, it's, we made the announcement. It's something I've wanted to do for years now.
Hmm.
Is to do some kind of a solo show, but also involve people that I've worked with over the years as well. So I kind of
Okay.
feel like I love making music with anybody, because like all the years of, working in the bands, and then I got into musical theater and worked with so many different singers over the years doing all that stuff as well.
Hmm.
And I've just grown to love collaborating, which I think was always what the bands were all about. And then musical
Yeah.
theater as well, in an even greater forum of collaboration. You're working with singers, and you're working with designers and directors and stage directors and other musicians and all these things. So it's a larger experience, a larger collaboration than it is being in a band. But for me, it was like always about the music in that way. But for years I thought, it would be really cool to like do some kind of a night where I could play songs from like Spoon's tunes or Honeymoon Suite songs or theater songs, like whatever it is, different things I've done, and just make it like an all-encompassing sort of thing. So it's going to be an endless work in progress, because I feel like I could do it at a small scale or a larger scale, depending who's
Mhm.
around, who I can bring with me to do it in that way. So
Love it.
like 5 years ago, when I first started thinking about it, it was the pre-COVID era, and
Yeah.
somebody had mentioned this place, the Moonshine Cafe in Oakville, and I read about it online, and I thought, this is like a really cool small place. It only holds like 60 or 70 people, or it's like a really intimate place, but it's really
Yeah.
made for live music and for coming to hear music. They don't serve food, but it's got a bar.
Yeah.
But back then I had contacted the owner, and then it fell through because I was doing some other projects here in New York. And then this last year I started talking and working with a guy in Toronto who's like my manager slash mentor slash advisor slash just my friend. And we're like, he's
Okay.
the one who was like, you got to do this thing. Like, just do it. So we've been sort of planning it, and we finally were able to nail down a date at the Moonshine. And I've got some people lined up who are going to come with me that I still haven't really officially announced yet.
Okay.
But then it's sold out like really fast too. Like within the first day it sold out,
Oh,
because
good for you.
it's a
That's
small
great.
place. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fun. And then they put a second show on sale, and I sold out the second show already as well. And then there's a third show that we're going to do in May. I think it's like May 18th or something. And
Okay.
that one still has tickets. And then, because what I really want to do is then I want to go everywhere and do it. Like, I feel like
Mhm.
the music that I made with the Spoons and with Honeymoon Suite is sort of like the entry level of just me wanting to make music. So even if somebody like in Kelowna, BC is like, there's a little club in Kelowna or in Kamloops or Calgary, whatever. And if they go, oh, I sort of remember that one Spoon song, then I think, well, then come see me and I'll just play these songs. And I want to play songs that sort of inspired me when I was growing up as well. And like, it's like, there could be classical music, there could be whatever. Maybe I'll play a song that my dad loved, like, I just want to share music. Like I said before, like the music makers and the music listeners, we all need each other. And
Yes.
I don't want to put on like a spectacle. I'm not going to like sell myself as like it's a reunion tour of like one of my bands or something, but I just want
Yeah.
to be the guy who was in these bands, who made the music, and we'll just have an evening together sort of sharing this music. And I don't know. I just feel like it's something I would want to hear, and I think maybe other people would want to hear it too. So
And it's such a great idea because you're not pigeonholing yourself to one thing. Like, okay, tonight I'm doing the spoons, then I'm doing honeymoon.
yeah,
You're it's all encompassing, and it's sharing a story, and like sharing stories is so important, and it's so
yeah,
much at the forefront of what a lot of artists, different people are doing now. It's like,
yeah, for sure.
what is the story behind this person and how did they get from, you know, to
Yeah.
where they are? And
And it's true. And
you
it's a
like,
bit, I feel like it could
yeah,
become sort of autobiographical. Like I'm still sort of playing
mhm,
around with the way to do the whole evening, because I have so many different kinds of things I want to do. And I don't know if I want to make it go like from I played piano when I was 5 and then play some music and then get all the way through to the end, or I might just mix it up, like I feel like it could
yeah,
change all the time in that way. But I'm sure the more shows I do, I will get the structure. But at this point, I
mhm.
feel sort of like a comedian who's trying a new set, or a jazz musician who's trying a new set, and you're like, just come and see it. And I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be something that you'll hopefully get entertained by some of it. So
I love that. And you'll have that captive audience where you'll be able to see their reaction to it, and you'll
yeah,
see what's
exactly.
resonating, and
Yep. It's
yeah,
one
kind
of
of
the things
they'll
I
build
really
it
learned.
for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This comedian who I love so much, Eddie Izzard. So
Oh God, I
Eddie,
love Eddie. Yeah.
oh my God, he/she is unbelievable, because these days
Mhm.
he's a he and a she. And
Yeah.
I've seen Eddie in New York when he's developing new shows and like new stadium tours or whatever. And he would come to New York like 10 or 15 years ago. He booked like a week of shows at this really small off-Broadway theater. And I thought, this is the coolest thing, because you have to try new material. And especially with comedians, they always say, you don't really know whether it's going to work until you're in front of an audience. And then you have to gauge the reaction, and you have to see what works and what doesn't work. And so I thought the coolest thing was I bought a ticket to the first show, and then I bought another ticket like 2 weeks later to the very last one. And every night he came out and did a set. And I think it was like slowly trying new bits and working and seeing what happens, with the reactions or whatever. And I love Eddie no matter what she does. So I'll go to
Yes.
anything, right? And I sort of feel like my dream with what I want to do is sort of the same. It's going to be always evolving, and I hope it never becomes a thing where I'm going to come out and go like it's going to be so by routine that I'm going to tell this story and I'm going to play this song. I don't want it to be that, because for me, music is always alive, even if it's old music, right? Like if I'm playing
Yeah.
classical music, or I play a Spoons tune, or I play like a Taylor Swift. Like my wife and I, we do a lot of work with kids, like doing music classes and voice lessons and public school kind of things. And so I love lots of Taylor Swift songs because kids want to hear Taylor Swift, and I love her songs because I see
Wow.
like kids are loving the new music, and that's sort of, you got to, keep their interest and keep their inspiration. So you got to follow what they're interested in. So I want my show to
Yeah.
be sort of that kind of thing. Anything goes.
Yeah.
So
Yes, that's perfect. I love that. It's such a great concept. So
I hope you'll come to one of the shows. I don't know. Like I got to get
yes,
you.
well, I was gonna say I want to come on February 23rd, but it's sold out.
It's so sold out, and I don't
Yeah.
know what's the deal like with like trying to squeeze more people in. But definitely,
Yeah.
hopefully, one of the other two. Definitely, if you want to come, I should be able to get
Yeah,
you.
for sure. So you'll be at Moonshine on the 18th of May too?
May Yeah,
Is it
February
is it
23rd, and then there's
okay.
one. I think it's April the I forget the exact date. Like it's another Thursday though. It's like maybe April
Okay.
13th or something, and then May 18th. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'll get
Yep.
into one of those. Yeah, that's so great, Rob.
I love the
Lately,
wall behind you too, because I see
thank
well, I
you.
can't point to the wall, but I see the Smurf,
Yeah.
and I see Wonder
See the
Woman,
Smurf?
and I see the Hardy
Yeah.
Boys, and I see the roller skates, and I see
Yeah.
all, and the little MTV, and I see all the good things. I've just got my
Yeah,
dad
and I
back.
was
That's my dad back there.
oh, sweet. Oh, are you with him in that picture?
No, you know what? This is
No.
hilarious. I don't know where this was. My grandfather used to take them all on these like awesome fishing trips, like probably up north somewhere.
Yeah.
It looks like a Labatt's 50 commercial. Wait, look at that.
Oh, that's so great. Look at the stubby. Are they stubbies?
They sure are.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
got to be like the late 60s or the early 70s, but the way
Fantastic.
he's holding it, it's like an actual commercial.
Oh, that's
Crazy.
great. Yeah, I love. What was your dad's name? What was his first name?
Joachim.
Joachim. Very
Yeah,
nice.
Joachim. That's my middle
Yeah.
name too, Robert Joachim.
Oh, that's
And my
cool.
dad didn't have a
My,
middle name. Like I guess the Germans didn't do middle names, or at
my
least my
mom
dad did.
does not have a German name. No, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, my
a
mom
middle
doesn't have
name.
a middle name.
I remember
No.
your episode with
I,
your mom. I remember I loved that episode.
oh,
It
thank
was
you.
so good.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, Karin. Yeah, and my dad was his name was Wolfgang.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Good
yeah,
German name.
those German names are yeah. I always said, God, why didn't you guys name me Monica with a K? But they wanted to make it more Canadian,
I
gave me the
see, of
C, so
course.
it's
Close
okay.
enough. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. What's your favorite German meal? I must ask you. Do
My
you have a
God.
favorite or?
I have so many because we had them all. I love Kaiserschmarrn, Kaiserschmarrn, which is like a dessert kind of thing. It's sort of like pancakes that are busted up and like with jams and things mixed in. We used to get it in
Oh,
Munich in like the Marienplatz. There was a place that my parents would go to. Kaiserschmarrn, it's called.
oh,
I don't
that
even know
sounds
what it is, but it's
delicious.
pancakey. It's like it's almost like a dessert thing. It's eggs and it's
Yeah.
like a meal, but it's like a dessert kind of thing. But I love everything.
Yeah.
I love it all. I love canoodles. I love spätzle with
Yeah, I was gonna
everything,
say Spätzle.
of course.
Yeah.
And Denningers, every time I come to Burlington, the new Denningers freaks me out because I love to go. The mall is so weird now, the way they've like redone the whole mall itself.
Yeah,
Um,
it
but
is.
the Denningers that's in there now, like I'm obsessed with it. So,
Isn't it good? All the
and at
cake.
Christmas time, it was so gorgeous. When you come in that
Uh,
main entrance that's not in the mall entrance, you come in from the outside entrance, and
yeah.
like that whole first part, I'm like, oh my God, there's all the calendars, all the advent calendars, and the
Yes,
little the
and
advent
all
calendars that
the
light up.
yeah, and all the Pfeffernusse,
Oh
those
my
little
God.
white,
Yeah.
yeah, they're everywhere.
The
Yeah. Oh,
Lebkuchen for
oh, it's
days.
so good. Did your mom make gingerbread houses when you were a kid?
No,
No?
we did make one. I think when I was really little at some point, but she
Yeah.
wasn't that ambitious with it. She made lots of good things, but we used to get every year from my Oma in Germany. She would mail us, and it would come in like a big cardboard box, and it was with the
Yeah.
Nuremberg
Oh
Lebkuchens
my
and
God,
things
we get that
in
from my
those.
uncle.
Yeah, in
The
those
big box
tins.
of Lebkuchen,
Yeah.
right?
So you open it up, and
Yeah.
then inside the box is the little metal tins. And there's this
Yeah.
tin with these things, and then there's the round tin with these things. And
Yeah.
and then you save the tins because they're so beautiful. You don't want to throw them away because
Yeah.
they're like ancient. They're like from the 15th century, little wood carvings and things, right?
Yeah.
I love all that
So
stuff.
cool. Do you guys do at Christmas, do you do bunte Teller? You know what that is?
Uh-uh.
They're
Maybe.
like plates
Yeah.
and you have like mandarin oranges and cookies and chocolates.
Yes, of
They're
course.
just yeah,
I didn't know the name, but yeah, for sure. For
yeah,
sure. And my dad
puntatella.
always we always had the Christmas traditions where he used to tell us like for him with his family, like, well, we didn't get the Christmas tree until Christmas Eve. And then
Yeah,
my dad would go into the living room and they'd shut the doors, and then
yeah.
the parents, I guess, would do the Christmas tree, and then they'd open it with the gifts, and then you do the gifts on Christmas Eve. So my parents were always keen to like make that the tradition. Like when I was really small, Christmas morning was still the thing. When we got a little older, my dad was like, well, let's do what I did is Christmas Eve. So then we got to have the tradition of like having two, like Christmas Eve and Christmas morning as well. So it was nice
Oh,
to
so
mix those
nice.
together. Yeah.
Yeah. I grew up with the Christmas Eve celebration, and I don't
Yeah.
know if your dad did this, but my mom would ring a little bell. It was like the
Yes.
Christkind has come and brought
Yes.
the
Of
gifts. Yeah.
course. I love all that stuff. It's
Oh,
crazy.
I
And
love
so
it
then
too.
and then in the 90s my parents moved back to Germany. In 93 they moved back to
Yeah.
Munich because they had a business in Burlington, and at some point in the like early 90s the business wasn't doing as well, but my dad got this opportunity to go work in Munich in a business that was related to what he was doing in Burlington, and they were like, well, let's just move everything. So they sold our house, which for me was a little traumatic at that point because I was like, well, you're going to sell our family house and move away. And that was me being a selfish kid, right? I
Yeah, but how
realized,
old were you? You're
well, I
only
was already
eight.
20, yeah, 28 or something. So I was old enough to know
Oh,
better,
okay.
but it was still my
But
family
still.
house, the house that we grew up in, that I would always,
Yeah.
come back to. And it was that the tradition of our family was in that house because I felt like for all the years that I was in the bands and always on the road and away, coming home was the place to be, like to come back to be with the family again. So the fact that they were going to
Yeah.
sell the house and move to Germany it was hard for me at first, but it was like the best lesson that I didn't ask to be taught, because then they moved to
Yeah.
Munich, and they found a cool apartment in Munich, and like sort of, well, there's not really a downtown, but it was a great area where my Oma used to live. And they lived there for like almost 11 years. And I would go back every year, a couple times a year, to visit them there. And it was like a not second childhood, but like a second life with my parents, because they had started a new life in Munich again, which was sort of
Yeah.
because they had met in Munich and then moved back to Burlington. It was cool for them to be back there as well. So I got
So
the
cool.
extra.
So was your mom, she's also German,
No, she's Canadian, but
or
she just loved
she's
Germany.
Canadian?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Because when you were saying the wedding was all like empty on your dad's side, I thought your mom was German too, but okay, that's so
She
interesting.
was, yeah,
Yeah.
she grew up in this area. Um, she graduated McMaster University, and then she like the next summer she went to Germany, or she traveled around Europe. She was like in
Right.
Spain and in Italy and traveling around. And then she had taken a course to teach English, I think, and she got assigned to a school in Munich. And that's where she met my dad,
Oh,
because she had a friend who was taking singing lessons with the same teacher that my dad was taking lessons with. And my mom's friend was like, "Oh, you got to come see Mr. Preuss, because Mr. Preuss."
Christ, yeah.
Yeah.
With the
So
Did he do it with the sharpest S?
the umlaut. I mean,
Is
not the umlaut.
with
It's
the
called S.
sharpest
SZ.
S?
Yeah.
Yeah,
SZ.
yeah, yeah.
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 Yeah. It's weird
Whenever
when
I
you see
write
it.
your name, I want to put the sharp S.
Really? That's funny.
Yeah.
I know. I write that thing. It looks like a big weird B, right?
Yeah,
Of
yeah.
course.
It's
Yeah.
almost like a treble clef. You
Or
could
a
do
treble
a
clef.
treble clef for yeah.
That's true. I never thought of that.
Eh?
Right.
There you
Yeah. When I was with Honeymoon Suite, we did a tour in
Yeah.
Germany as well. We did a tour in England and in Germany with this really popular British band called Status Quo, who they were like a
Okay.
60s band who like were popular forever in Germany and in England. And we did a pretty extensive tour of all these towns in Germany. And in Munich, we played at the Olympia Stadium, not the big, huge outdoor stadium. It was one of the smaller stadiums, but my Oma got to
Okay.
come and see us play, and with some
Oh,
of my cousins as well. And that was really cool to be able to be there. And that was a few years before my parents moved back. Yeah.
wow. Oh gosh, that's so cool that your Oma came.
I know. Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. She must have been hip.
I don't know how hip she really was, but my cousin was a DJ in Munich, though. He's the one that made me
Okay.
obsessed with Queen and Elton John when I was 9 years
Yeah.
old, because we went to visit Germany when I went to meet my cousins for the first time in the summer of 75.
Okay.
My cousin was a little older than me, and he had like a huge record collection, and he's the one that sort of tuned me into like loving even more of it. So he brought my Oma to the show.
Oh, so cool. I love all these memories. It's so neat because I'm not going to come back at you every time with, hey, I did that. But everything you're saying, I have like all these parallels
Good.
because
That's
of the
amazing.
German.
Yes, of
Yeah,
course.
it's
But
so
I feel like
cool.
for us, like as Canadians, we have this ethnic heritage, right? Which we
Yeah.
like, our families all have this stuff, like no matter where they're from, which I feel
Hmm.
like I was telling my wife the other day, like when we were up in Burlington, like the immigrants to Canada, it's always been that way. Like they want to, you bring your traditions and
Yeah.
you bring your heritage and the things that you love, and you celebrate it in Canada. And Canada has always been open to all that stuff. And I feel like it's
Hmm.
never really gone away in that way. Like it's shifted like from different parts of the world over the years, of course. But like
Yeah.
when we were kids, and it was all the Italians and all the Germans and the Polish people, like my mom's
Yeah.
family is all Polish as well, right? So I always had the best of
Yeah.
the Polish world and the German world all happening together. So
Yeah. Oh, it's so great. I love that. Now, I wanted to also talk to you about a concert. So, Honeymoon Suite, now I know I did see you because I was
yeah,
there.
yeah,
But I also saw the Spoons open for Hall and Oates. That's why I wore the T-shirt because I'm
that's
like, damn
right.
it, I don't have it. I don't have this is from 1983, my T-shirt. Still
Okay,
have it. But that's not the show you played at. You
no,
played the
nope.
next one, which was 85 or
85.
86.
Yeah, it was 85. Yep.
And I actually my brother pointed out when I had my interview here with Sandy Horn that you were late for that show, or were you a no-show? Now I can't
I
remember.
I was a
Were
late no show because I
You were
arrived.
late.
I swear to God, I arrived. Um, I was coming from Florida because my family was on vacation in Florida at the time.
Okay.
And it was like a really last minute thing. Like our manager, I remember calling saying, "Oh my God, we're going to do these shows with Hall and Oates. So you need to come home early." And I was kind of mad, like, because we'd been on the road so much, and my parents and my sisters and my girlfriend, we were all going to go to Florida, and we had this time set out. And all of a sudden I got this call saying, you got to come back early. And I was like, oh, I don't want to leave early. So I had them book me on a flight, like as close to the day of the show as I could. So it was really like the early afternoon of the show. Cause I thought, well, I'm going to fly into Toronto and I'll just they'll have a car to pick me up and take me to Maple Leaf Gardens. So I thought it's going to be fine. So of course I get to the airport and there's like snow delays or something, 2 hours delay or whatever. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding? I couldn't think about it. Sure enough, I got to Toronto and there was a car to take me to the show, and it was late because the flight was delayed. It might have only been even like an hour, but of course it was pushed close enough to showtime that I was going to have enough time to just get to the backstage door and put clothes on and get on stage. Oh. So the delay was just enough that I missed the show. And I swear that I pulled up to the stage door, and I think that the door opened and I heard Tell No Lies. Like it was like the last song of the show. I was like, oh my God, should I even go in now? Like I remember going in and everybody was like looking at me like they were mad. Of course they were mad, because what am I going to do? It was just right. So yeah, but this crew had set my keyboard up on the stage. And I think Gord was making jokes like, oh, here's Rob. And then they put the spotlight over to the keyboard, but then I never came out. So, yeah.
So they had no keyboard player. Daryl wouldn't pick up the slack, hey?
Poor Daryl. Should have done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So that's the infamous show that if people were there, that like, it's hilarious. And I felt really bad at the time. But then I thought, well, what are you going to do? Like, I didn't want to come and play the show anyways. Like, and I'm going to, so... but we did 2 or 3. We did end up playing with them as well. There was the Toronto show. Then we did shows in Montreal and Quebec City and maybe somewhere else as well. So we did get to play with them, and I got to see their show, and they were unbelievable as well.
Oh, that's so great.
Good. Yeah.
It's so funny. I saw the very first time I saw Hall & Oates was in 1982 on SCTV.
Oh yes, I remember that.
You remember that episode? Yep. And it was they were mocking Chariots of Fire. They were doing Chariots of Eggs, running with the eggs on the spoon. And then they performed Did It in a Minute on the Sammy Maudlin show. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God. And ever since then, I call myself, the #1.
Are you a big Hall & Oates fan? Really?
Oh, obsessed with Daryl Hall, wow. Like ridiculous. Yeah.
I did a workshop of a Hall & Oates musical it was 2009, I think. And a friend of mine was music directing this, so I played keyboards for it. And it was so fun because, and I don't remember who the writer was, but basically it was they were trying to do what they did with Mamma Mia, where they took all the ABBA songs and made a musical around it. Oh, so they wrote this story to use the Hall & Oates songs, but they took some of the like big hits, but they took some smaller songs as well. And it was so fun to work on. And Daryl and John came to see the presentation that we did, which I was like a nervous wreck. Like Daryl was standing in the back with his big sunglasses on, like watching. And he said afterwards, like, that sounded pretty cool. Like it was really good. And John was super nice. Like he came and hung out with the band a little bit. But one of the guys who played with us, actually 2 of the guys were guys from the Hall & Oates band. This T-Bone Walk was their bass player back in those days. And he played with us, and he was like giving us insights into the music and how to play it and stuff, which was amazing. And he passed away like a year later. It was so sad.
Yeah, 2013 he died. That was so sad. Right. And I think he was Daryl Hall's best friend, like in music and everything. Yeah.
So they brought him into this project because he like had the best insight into their music as well. And he was like, I was playing like the intro to it was like You Make My Dreams Come True or Rich Girl or one of those. And I was playing it, and he's like, oh, Daryl, he sort of explained to me the way Daryl sort of approached the keyboard. Like he didn't think too hard about it, and he liked to like sort of throw in notes that didn't quite fit and stuff. And so it was like those kind of experiences I love, because it's like a real learning process where you get the insights from the people who are there,
Yeah. It's so cool. You should have been on live from Daryl's house. He needs Rob Preuss. Remember that? Yeah. That was good. I don't think he's doing that anymore, but you would be an amazing guest on that.
He had amazing people on that though, for sure.
Yeah, he did. He even had Burlington people, Finger 11. They went on.
Did he really?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Do you remember when those guys were the Rainbow Butt Monkeys?
Of course. Yes.
Oh God, they were so good, eh?
I had a
Yeah.
friend who had a studio on Mainway. It was called Mainway Studios, and it was a recording studio. It was a good old friend of mine, and I think he did some of their early demos and recordings and stuff. And I think Derek,
Yeah.
our old Spoons drummer, I think he was involved at some point with either signing them or introducing them to somebody who signed them, either when they were the Rainbow Butt Monkeys or when they became Finger
Yeah.
11. Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy.
Oh, they were good. Yeah,
Yeah,
so much talent, hey? Right out of
yeah,
Burlington. So,
yeah.
Rob, I have, if it's okay, a couple of questions
Of
from
course,
our viewers.
we're
So,
not going
Aaron
anywhere. Are
Nielsen,
do we have a time limit?
no, we
Okay,
can
well then
talk
we're
all
here all
night
night.
if you want.
Sure,
Yeah.
whatever. Of course.
So Aaron Nielsen, I think you know Aaron. He
Hmm.
was in the nines as well.
Yep.
He he just said beyond the hair discussion, I wanted to ask Rob about working with John Punter
Mm.
and the B side of Nova Heart Symmetry and who had the 808. The 808? Does that
Yeah,
make
it's our drum
sense?
machine. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. The drummer. Yeah. Well, Aaron's a drummer. There you go.
Ah, okay.
Uh-huh.
Um, Symmetry
Yeah.
was originally the song that we thought was going to be the single. And when we decided that we were gonna, so after we recorded our first album, and then the year went by and we did shows and we were getting good press for the first album, and the new thing to do was to like do a 12-inch dance extended single, right, of a song. And so we thought,
Right.
like, I had loved Spandau Ballet, had done a bunch of them, and Duran Duran had done them, of course. And we thought, okay, that's the next thing we're going to do, is we're going to do a single with a two-sided single, and we need to pick songs. And for some reason, Symmetry was the first song that we were like, oh, this is kind of cool. And John Punter, we gave a demo of a couple songs to John, and he picked Symmetry. And then we needed a second song. We said, well, let's do the song Nova Heart, because Nova Heart was like the newest one, and we thought that'll be good too. So let's do that as the B side. So that was the intention when we went into the studio, was that those were the two songs that we recorded. That was January of '82, and we knew we were going to use a drum machine because that was going to be the new thing that everybody was really using a lot of. And John probably requested from the record company to say, well, I want you to rent this drum machine for me and bring it in the studio. And they brought in two different drum machines because the one he wanted, they couldn't get. It was a Roland, but they brought in this drum machine called a TR-808, which was the brand new machine at the time. Was just starting to be used more and more. And it showed up at the studio, and we were all like, I don't know what this is. Like, we'd never seen this before. And it was a programmable machine that nobody really knew how to work. And John was like, okay,
Oh,
well, I guess I just have to figure it out. So he like turned it on and started making the sounds, the beats. And the first beat he made was Nova Heart. So that
wow.
introduction sound of the drum machine was basically John, like, in the heat of the moment, going, okay, I got to make a
Yeah.
cool beat. So I'm going to try to make this beat. And that's what it is. And
Very cool.
that was Nova Heart. And so then for the song Symmetry, we had another drum machine we used, which was it was a Korg KR55 drum machine. And it was more preset beats. And maybe that's the one Aaron is thinking of. I'm not sure. But that was the one we
Okay.
used on Symmetry. So Nova Heart and Symmetry had two different drum machines, which kind of gave them different sounds in a way.
Yeah. That's so cool. Now I think he's got a part two to his question. Let's
Oh,
see here. Um, and for film, I know you are a Close Encounters of the Third Kind fan.
yes.
He's saying, and then he's also saying, I remember being at the arcade up in Sauble Beach playing Tempest and Nova Heart on the jukebox in
Oh,
between
that's cool.
Joan Jett, I Love Rock and Roll, and AC/DC Back in Black, along with others on repeat from 1982.
Nice.
Yeah.
Tempest. I remember that
Yeah.
game, sort of. It's one of those ones when I see
Yeah.
pictures of it, I think, I don't really remember that. I think I probably skipped over that game because either it was too hard for me or I just couldn't figure out how to win it, whatever.
Uh,
Amazing.
yeah, it's all back. It's all in there, Rob. It's all in the memory
It
bank.
never, I mean, there's
Yeah.
parts of our lives that don't really go away, but sometimes you just need like one trigger, right? Like,
Yes.
and for me, music has always been the trigger to
Hmm.
bring back, like, I feel like I can go specifically through years of my life pretty far along, especially the early years of my life, like up until, from, I look at, like I was saying earlier, I look at these chum charts and these CKOC charts
Yeah.
from when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and I see songs on there and I think, I guess I probably remember hearing that on the radio, because just seeing the name of a song gives me like a weird feeling of somewhere in my life there was a part of my brain that was going, ooh, what's that sound? And what is making that,
Yeah.
what's that music? And so it was always
Right.
evolving inside of me. And I feel like that's true even for people who aren't musicians. If you grew up with music in your world, it's always it's like a gateway and a key to get back to like some memories that we may not even think we can find, you know?
Yes, that's right. It's funny, whenever I hear yacht rock,
Yeah.
that to me, that is like a drug to me
Mm.
because and it's the trigger of, being on holiday with my parents and my Oma and being in the car driving to Florida, like, my Oma smoking cigarettes,
Oh yeah,
but we
sure.
were all happy, we were on vacation,
Yep.
and when I hear those songs, like when I hear Rupert Holmes, Him, remember that song?
Of
Or
course.
yeah, all
Yeah.
those tunes, they it's like a warm blanket. It's like,
And I think it's
okay,
true for everybody, and everybody has their own era of songs to love in that
Mhm.
way, which is why I feel like when I'm working with kids today, I think for them, these are the songs they're gonna look back on in like 40 years or 50 years. They're gonna listen to Taylor Swift and go, "Oh my God, that makes me so happy when I hear that song."
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
crazy for us because we have all these years of music already accumulated. But I
Yeah.
try to look at every generation and think, oh, it's just a little bit different as every generation comes along. They've got their opinion. But of course, every generation thinks mine is the best. Mine is the most
Yeah.
important because it's
Well,
mine. And you sort of forget
yeah.
that everyone has their own.
Now I did hear something proving that Gen X actually is the best
Really?
generation. And what they said was it's the best generation because kids now are going back to the music of the 80s and listening to it, and it's so cool to them. But
Yeah.
our generation, we didn't go, obviously we went back a little bit, but we were super into the 80s when we
Yeah.
were in the 80s. So
When it was
that's what
brand
they
new.
say.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
yeah,
And it's weird in
yeah,
that way that for sure, because we were making brand new music and nobody was really looking backwards at that point, right? Like even
yeah.
my parents loved all the music on the radio. They whatever was new and they would listen. I
Mhm.
mean, they had all their old Elvis records and their old whatever the German music like James Last and Heino and all that stuff
Oh
still
yeah,
existed as
James
well,
Last.
right?
Yeah.
But essentially the radio was always promoting new music and the whole world was tuning in to hear new music and it was always going forward. But at some point, it changed to sort like the balance sort of tipped to be like old music was what people wanted to hear.
Mhm.
Maybe it became that there were more old people. I don't know because the new music was always existing, but it sort of started shifting for all of us as we got older that we thought, oh, I really remember that song and I like that song, so I'm not going to listen to new music because I'm going to listen to old music.
Yeah.
But they've always been there. But like you're right, if we think back to like in the 80s, we didn't go, oh my God, I'm obsessed with music from the 40s or from the 30s.
Yeah. No.
We never did that.
No. No, we
So
were so into our thing. I had a teacher that I think later on he actually went to teach at Aldershot. That's where you went to
I
school.
went to
You went to
Nelson.
Aldershot.
I went to
Oh, you
Nelson.
went to Nelson. Okay. So I had this teacher and it was only for one semester. He would have been like 32 at the time and I was in
Yeah.
grade 11 and I was so into new wave obviously, and
Yeah.
he made me a mixtape and it was all Roxy music. And I
Oh
was into
wow.
the Avalon album, but he's
Yeah.
like, no, there's so much you need to learn about this band before Avalon.
Yeah.
And it really opened my eyes and my ears to like the influences of Japan and Duran Duran and
For
Scritti
sure.
Politti and all these bands that it was like, wow, this band's pretty important. And
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 yeah.
this teacher, he says, I still remember when your father came for the parent teacher interview. He said, ah, so you are the man who is making my daughter the mixtapes.
Ah, oh, that's amazing. But like
You think,
you were talking about John Punter earlier. John worked with Roxy
yeah,
Music on some of those earlier records. And I
ah,
think
that's
that's
incredible.
why. So when he worked with us, we were excited to work with him because he had worked with Japan, but Japan
Yeah,
were excited to work with him because he'd worked with Roxy Music. So you see, like
right.
every step along the way, like everybody
Yeah.
influences everybody else, right? And when we were going to work with him, I remember thinking, I know Roxy Music, but I hadn't really listened. I didn't grow up listening to them except the few singles and songs that I knew, like as individuals that I would hear on
Mhm.
CFNY or whatever.
Yeah.
But knowing that he was important to Japan when they worked with him in 1980 and 79 and 80 is super cool. Because then when we were going to do Nova Heart and Symmetry and then arias and symphonies with him, we were just thinking, oh man, John Punter, he worked with Japan. Like, this is the coolest thing, you know? So
Yeah.
you see how those traditions come along. But like teachers, like you reminded me of my teacher when I was in grade 11. It was my social studies teacher and like world religions teacher. And I remember him telling me that he saw the Beatles at Maple Leaf Gardens, which to me was super
Oh,
cool because he was a huge music
yeah.
fan. So we would talk music all the time, but he was that generation just couple before, right? And he always
Yeah.
told me stories about seeing the Beatles and how he was like up in the back and like the Blues or the Grays or whatever, and he couldn't hear a thing because everybody was screaming so much, and they didn't have much of a PA system, so you couldn't really hear the band. But he said it was just amazing to just be there and know that you're in a
Yeah.
room with the Beatles. Like, I can't even imagine, you know?
God, that's incredible. So,
Yeah.
speaking of that, on your, on all the touring that you did with the Spoons and even Honeymoon Suite, like,
Yeah.
was there ever a moment where you met a band where you're like, oh my God, I can't believe it that, I'm meeting these people or playing with
Oh yeah, tons of them.
tons of
Oh my,
them. So,
oh my God.
yeah, tell us
For sure.
about some of those guys. Yeah.
Well, like we opened for Simple Minds. Well, we opened for OMD in
Oh,
Hamilton and at Mohawk College, and we also played with them. I think at the concert hall in Toronto. That one's a little vague.
yeah.
For some reason, the Mohawk College gig is really more like of a memory. But like I love their music. So like doing a show with them, I was excited to meet them. Then we did a show with Simple Minds in Toronto, and they were unbelievable. Like, I mean, they had only done a few albums at that point, but they were
Yeah.
one of those bands. Like when we were able to be on a bill with them, I thought, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. Like for us, it felt
Yeah.
like a step up
You
from just doing
you
our
have
gig.
arrived. Yeah.
Yeah. Or like we're getting
Yeah.
somewhere because we had been doing
Yeah.
gigs like, clubs on our own in Toronto. Like there was a
Mhm.
small sort of circle of clubs that you would play in. And when people got to know who you were, they would show up at these gigs, which is great. But if you
Mhm.
had a chance to open for somebody else, it was like one step above. Like I was saying earlier, like you get to
Yeah.
use their audience and introduce yourself to somebody new. So opening for Simple Minds was amazing. But I remember being in the bathroom backstage and Jim Kerr was in there putting his eyeliner on and like sort of talking to him, but I couldn't really understand a word he was saying because he was so Scottish. His accent was so thick. And I was like, I just sort of like, I tried to figure out that I knew what he was saying. And I was only
Yeah.
like 16 at the time as well. Right. So it
God.
was exciting, but, at the same time, like a little sort of slightly nerve wracking, but we did. So then with the
Yeah.
Spoons, we opened for the Police as well. So that was like a super
Oh,
cool thing to
great.
like get to interact with them. And it was the Police and Talking Heads and Joan Jett, and Flock of Seagulls, which is cool because Gord plays with Flock of Seagulls now.
Yes.
So it was like a weird sort of karmic
Wow.
historical sort of thing, right? But yeah, anytime you get to
Yeah.
see people like I was saying earlier, like when you meet somebody for the first time that you know them from their music or from seeing them, yep. Like for me, I was always like, I try to play it cool, but at the same time, I'm like, holy shit, it's you! Like this is really cool. Like I met Rod Stewart backstage at a show when we were opening for Culture Club, and like guys from Cheap Trick would come out to shows, and like just
Yeah.
you get used to seeing people and sort of playing it
Mhm.
cool at the same time because you're like, oh, that's like a really somebody I loved when I was younger as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. I love it. And it's sort of, I feel like you're returning that now for me, like I have this little talk show I started in the pandemic and
well,
you've
you
been
started
so
off with
awesome.
but
Like you,
but we've been
yeah.
like in touch for so much over the years, but it was
Yeah.
before you opened it up to the male population. I was like, oh
Yeah.
my God, we should totally do a show one day, and if you ever do, let's do it. So we always knew it would
Yeah.
happen eventually.
Yeah, but I'm so grateful to you because when I first, really got going with it, you were like, "Sure, I'll connect you with Sandy Horn," and
Yeah.
and that was so nice. So now I feel like, my audience has broadened thanks to you guys,
Amazing.
and
And I've
yeah.
loved like connecting Sandy with you, and like I said before, like your mom, the episode with your mom, and there was somebody else that I remember watching specifically that I loved.
Was it
Oh,
was it Lee
May,
Aaron? No.
no, it was Mayor
Oh,
Marianne.
oh, Mayor Marianne. That's right.
Yes,
You were like, I
I.
love her.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, I hope someday I get to meet Mayor Marianne as well. Yeah,
Yeah, she's cool. So
yeah.
you're back in Burlington in February, you're coming back the
Yes.
end of,
I mean, I was just
okay.
there I woke up this morning in Burlington and I'm now in
Yeah.
Queens, New York. Um, so like I said, with my dad, I've been back since Christmas. I had been back like every week I've been back. And so
Yeah.
now I've come home to Queens and I'll go back again probably sometime in the next few weeks, I'm sure. I mean, I'm so
Yeah.
used. I love driving. First of all, it's like a 8 to 9 hour drive, but I love the
Yeah.
drive because I feel like I always say, like, I could sit on my couch and spend 8 hours listening to music and podcasts and audiobooks or whatever.
Yeah.
So if I get in the car and I feel like I'm getting back home, I'll do that as well.
Yeah.
So I love
Yeah.
coming up as often as I can. So definitely
Good.
for my shows in February and hopefully before that as well.
Yeah, cool. Well, you and your wife, when you come, you'll have to come have a visit at my studio. I'll give you the
Yeah,
tour here.
for sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
that would be
I would
fun.
love
And
it.
if you're not playing on a Thursday, I don't know if you guys are into roller skating, but actually there- there's a couple people watching. I just rediscovered my love for roller skating.
I see your
You
roller
do
skates
you rem
behind you.
Yeah, do you remember like in Burlington we had roller gardens
Yes. Roller gardens
and then
across. It was across the street from the movie theater, the Cineplex.
yeah, and there was always scooters in Mississauga, so that place is
Oh,
still
really?
there. There are
Yeah.
some threats of gentrification that they're gonna rip it down and put condos up, but it's still the original building and it's so much fun.
The
Like
roller gardens building?
the one in Clarkson that
Oh,
it's
okay.
called Scooters Roller
Okay.
Palace, but I think it
Yeah.
it used to be called something else in the 80s, but
Oh, wow.
it's so nice to have
I
those things like
never I
roller
never roller
skating,
skated.
bowling. You
I
never
love
did?
never roller
You
skated
were on
like
the piano, that's why.
yeah, exactly. I did love Burlington Bowl because when it first opened, it was like the
Yeah,
cool place to go because it had like the digital counters or whatever was new at that time, right? And there was something
yeah,
special about that. So I remember loving that. But yeah, I never
yeah.
roller skated. My sister, I used
Oh.
to go pick her up at Burlington Bowl all the time. I mean,
Well,
I mean
did
at
you?
roller gardens. Yeah, roller
Oh, at
gardens.
roller gardens? Oh,
Uh-huh.
that's great.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
tell her she can get back into it
For
anytime.
sure. I mean, you get older though. I'm afraid I wouldn't want to fall. You're gonna break something. I
Yeah,
don't know.
well, it's funny. So they have there on Thursday nights at 7, they have you can do a lesson for an hour.
Oh, cool.
The guy who teaches the lesson, he's 71 years old. He
Oh
looks like
wow.
George Carlin.
No
He's
way. Wow.
super sarcastic, and he had my girlfriend like go from holding the wall to whipping around the rink
Really?
in an hour.
Oh
So
my
don't be
God.
afraid.
I'm
Wrist
afraid.
guards are the most important. I've
And of course, wrist guards and knee guards, whatever. I mean,
Yeah,
but even when I was a kid, I was always, I mean, I never played really very many sports. And I
yeah,
remember I have like a few memories of trying to ski. Like I remember my dad took me once to Lowville to do like one of those baby hills with skiing on a
yeah,
hill. And I was like, I think I did it one time. I was like, nah, that's fine. I don't need to do that again. And I
yeah.
always thought I was going to love long, what do you call it? Cross country skiing, but I never got into that. So yeah, sports and me never, I was the musician. So
Yeah, I was the same as you. I just felt clumsy. Like I never felt like, yeah.
yeah. Like I have a nephew
No,
now, right, who plays in the NHL, and it's like for me, it's fantastic because I love hockey now. Like I love watching him play, and I'm very thankful that it's only been until the last like 6 or 7 years that I've started watching hockey because I feel like I would have wasted many hours of practicing piano and learning things
yeah,
if I was into hockey then, like I like it now
yeah.
because I got to ignore it for all these years, but now I see what the big deal is. Now I can
That's
appreciate it.
right. Yeah. Can you imagine, Rob? Your life would have been, you would have been popping stubbies
I
the whole
know.
time,
Yeah, that's right.
sitting on the
Hanging out.
couch watching.
Yeah. I love it
Yeah.
now. Like now I tune in when my nephew's playing and I'm so excited, but
Yeah.
it's kind of stressful. Like I know how it feels. My sister is super stressed out every time he plays, but I love that.
Yeah, it's great. So this is good. So I guess your next thing that you're doing will be back here with us, or have you got anything else happening
No, that's
before
my
that?
next. Yeah, no, really, that's my next in Oakville at the Moonshine in February will be my next thing in Canada.
Yeah,
And
good.
like I said before, like hopefully once we get into the rest of the year, we're going to try to plan and book a bunch of shows and just keep going, whether it's going to
Yeah.
be in a small period of time or whatever. But I'm willing to go anywhere because basically I just want to play music and sort of do what we do, but like have a piano in
Yeah.
front of me at the same time, you know?
Oh, it's so perfect. I'm excited for you. And I love the whole concept and it's going to work beautifully into, your whole how you've well, not that you've branded yourself. You are who you are, but we feel your brand through your social media.
Awesome.
It's really
It's just
great.
me.
Yeah.
It's just me being me.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's when I look at all the musicians that I've ever liked through my life, I feel like when you make music, you have to just do what feels right to you, and people
Mhm.
will resonate with that if it resonates with. I mean, if they recognize that, they get it. And there's not much more to it. Like, I mean, of course, these days people talk about marketing music, and you have to be on social media, and it's more about making music to sell other things. And I'm like, none of that really matters in the end. It's really about the music. I mean, for me, that's what it
Yeah.
is. So
It's true. I think it's so important for any artist just to you gotta get back to what makes you feel good, because all the other stuff, it doesn't
yeah,
it just sends you in a tailspin of trying to be something you think you're supposed to be, or
yeah.
doing something a certain way because everybody else is doing it, like
Yeah, and you can't keep up with
yeah,
trends. Like, I mean, and I guess definitely
no.
you have to realize and learn that as you get older, that the kids, like, you're going to be left far behind. Like, I can't even hope or try or worry about trying to keep up with what kids are doing, whether they're kids in their 20s or their 30s even. Like, I mean, I
Yeah.
love catching up with as much new music as I can, but I feel like I'm still in a world that's separated from that in many ways, because
Mhm.
I'm from another era and like another generation, but all I can do is celebrate that. And I do like the idea of like bringing in people from any age as well to collaborate or to share their music as well. But you
Yeah.
can't compete with it, because everything exists in its own world until it gets rediscovered in the larger picture of music, which I think is
Yeah.
fantastic, because like I said before, like every era has its own, like we all think our teenage years were the best, and everybody thinks that,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, that's right. I want you to do your show in Germany.
me too.
That would be
I want to go
so
everywhere.
cool. I'll come to that show.
Right? Oh my God. I'd like to go everywhere. Like, that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like, I feel like, especially because I want to play music that I loved when I was a kid as well. And like music
Yeah.
that was around in my Spoons era. Like, I want to challenge myself to learn music by like Tears for Fears or Japan or
Mhm.
whatever it is, and sort of incorporate that with the music that we were making at the same time. And I think, well, I could probably do that anywhere, because people would recognize that music. It's, to me, it's sort of like what Lawrence Welk did
Yes.
and like what Liberace did in a way, in a
Yeah.
weird way. They were guys who just did music that was always in the air and always around them, and they were just the musicians making the music. And you just want to celebrate all music, whether it's a little bit of classical music and a little bit of whatever is
Mhm.
current, and I've always felt like that's sort of where my heart is just sitting at a
Yeah.
piano or with other people and just saying, let's just pick some songs and play them.
Okay, let me know if you need me to come on tour to operate the bubble machine. I will do that
Can
for
you
you.
sing? Can you
I'll
sing it all? Because it'll be a sing along too. I want
Okay,
everybody to
well,
sing too.
I might need to practice. I gotta take
That's okay. That's all
I'll
right.
take a few lessons.
Sure.
So, you know what? I'm now imagining you like touring around. The cool thing too about the whole Gen X thing is you could easily do your show somewhere like Germany or
Yeah.
England or wherever, and have like Roland from Tears for Fears
I
come and join you
know.
for, like they would do that.
Of
It would be
course.
so
It's my
cool.
dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
my dream starts with the Canadians, of course, because that's
Of
us.
course. Yeah.
And I feel like
Yeah.
anywhere I go in
Well,
Canada, I would try to like say, if anybody is around, and I'll see who I can find, because I have friends everywhere that either
mhm.
I've made music with or I know them and they've made music, and I would say, just come
Yeah.
sing a song, come do a couple
Yeah.
songs, whatever. So it'll always
That's right.
make each performance sort of special in that way too, because
For
you never know
sure.
who's going to show up. It's like bits and bytes.
Yeah. Oh my God, it'd be so cool. And when Jim Kerr comes, you can get him to put the eyeliner
I
on right there on stage.
know. And I think he lives
Yeah.
most of the time like in Italy now. So maybe I'll have to go to Italy as well.
Yeah. It's all there. Oh, this is exciting. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
Rob, thank you so much for all your time. This conversation's been amazing, more than I ever could have dreamed
Did you
of.
get all your
And
questions in? Because did you have a
I
list of
think I got
questions?
all my questions. I did.
I'm
I
not
wrote
going
them all
anywhere. So
down.
if you feel like you got it all, then we're good.
I think I got it all.
Did you?
I'm gonna go through the comments just quick to make sure we
Okay.
didn't miss any guest stuff. So let's see who's
I'm a good
watching.
Canadian with my Mr.
Uh,
Dressup shirt. Wait, can you see my? There he
oh
is.
God, that's
It's my treehouse
fantastic.
shirt. I'm obsessed with.
Oh,
There's a company called Retro Kid, and they have all like they sell all these amazing like old CBC and old like Canadian television things. And on their website they do these
oh,
exclusive things on sale. But I like anytime I see them, I've got to buy them. It's my Mr. Dress Up treehouse.
that is so great. I love it. I love it. Love it.
You
If
have
any of
you're
you
cooler
guys
because
have
you got
questions,
Hall and Oates.
Oh yeah, Hall and Oates. And I should have brought it to show you. I have my Duran Duran t-shirt still from
Oh,
the
you with the music and I'm with
84.
Mr. Dressup. Come on now.
Yes. I just need a Spoons t-shirt, damn it.
Me too.
Anyway, one day I'll get one. So if anybody has any questions, put them in now because we're gonna ask Rob whatever questions you have. Let's see here. Anyway, people are making nice comments. The Spoons take me back to a simpler time. Great band. That's Carlos saying that. Um, let's see. Paula Montgomery, she sends her condolences for your dad.
Thank you.
Carlos also says Purdue. I guess you guys played Purdue High School. I'm pretty sure you did.
Probably.
That was down the street from Blakelock. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then let's see. Somebody's asking Michelle, or sorry, Cheryl, if she still has her bracelet from you. Oh my God, this is so funny. It's cool, to see the
It's so amazing.
conversations between people.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Maureen says, very cool. Remember when they practiced over at the mini mart where I used to work?
Well, maybe that's on Brant Street because we had a rehearsal studio upstairs on Brant Street, just north of Caroline, where Jubilee Variety was.
Okay.
So the corner at Jubilee. Well, I was just there yesterday at Smith's Funeral Home.
Aw.
But up the corner is Jubilee Variety, and then there's that plaza up there, and there was an upstairs place that we rented out as a rehearsal space with the Spoons, and for like a year and a half we were in there, and we would go in and
God.
we had a little mini studio in there to record some demos and stuff. Maybe that's where she means.
Yeah, that's so cool. And Lisa is saying, so fun. The Spoons played at my high school often, Ancaster High, and
Oh
now my
yes,
son, who's 21 listens to them.
beautiful.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
good parenting.
actually, that is good parenting. And Aaron has another great question. Did you ever play with Saga? Remember Saga?
Sure. Yeah. No, I don't think we ever
Yeah.
did.
No?
And for some reason, Saga always makes me think of Strange Advance, and we did play with Strange Advance, but never actually play with Saga. Although I feel like their drummer Jim Negus, I think we might have rented drums from him or like electronic drums. There's something about Jim, but never actually did shows with them.
Were they German, those guys?
No, but they were
Or the
huge in
lead singer?
Germany. No.
Yeah, they were huge in Germany. I remember the red outfits.
Yeah.
The
Yep. Yeah. No, they
the
were
red
very popular.
jumpsuits.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah, they were. Don Lumsden is asking, please remind me, was the drummer for Honeymoon Suite's name Dave Betts?
Yes, it was.
Is that right?
You
It
are
was.
correct. Yep.
Excellent.
Yep.
Very good.
Always and forever,
Deb,
Dave Betts.
that's cool. Deb Salisbury says hello from Aldershot.
Hello, Deb. Deb is a good friend of mine.
Aw, that's so nice.
Yeah, we go way back.
That's great. And people are saying, Mary Jane Adamo, she's my roller skating buddy. She says, I know a few people who wish they'd grown up in the 80s. Yeah. Yeah. And
I wish I grew up in the 1880s. I mean, that's in the 80s as well, but like,
oh my God, really? You really do?
yeah. I mean, I loved a lot of music. There was a lot of good things happening back then as well. Like, well, maybe the 1890s, but yeah, I mean, our 80s were good, but like, I've always been interested in music from other eras. And like I read a lot of books of like, well, poetry and philosophy and stuff. And there were good people in those eras as well. And I think, it must have been a whole different world. Like, I find it fascinating to like learn just about other eras, but I would pick the 1780s too. Sure. Why not?
Yeah.
300 years ago.
Yeah. Why not? It's neat to see patterns too. Like now we're supposed to be in the roaring 20s. Maybe they'll start roaring a little later.
That's right.
I don't know.
Exactly right.
Roma Sparrow, she says, please say hi to you and your sister, Stephanie.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Hi.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And let's see. Oh, and then Kaya Mitchell's saying, Mr. Dressup, awesome. That's cool. Aaron's saying Steve Negus.
That's the drummer for Saga. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, that's the drummer for Saga. Right. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
Exactly.
Oh, that's great, Rob. Awesome. Well, you're amazing. I'm so happy that you could do this today.
I'm glad we were able to finally do it.
I know. And we'll have to do a part two, like once your tour's going and stuff.
For sure,
And
for
that would
sure.
be so fun.
Or do like a
Yeah,
live
I would love.
report, like come to one of my shows and we'll do like some kind
Yeah.
of a live thing, and then you can have a special report.
Oh, I would love that.
I
And I
should
can
have
bring like the mic and do like we're live here from, okay,
exactly,
I'm
exactly.
into it. Yeah, yeah. Then I need a Spoons t-shirt.
Me too. I should make a
Yeah.
new one. I'll
Oh,
make just a Rob Spoon
yes.
shirt. It'll just say Rob
That's
Spoon.
right. Rob Spoon. Actually, Kaya just chimed in again. She's following up with me. Monica, did you tell him that we all had his hairstyle? And yes. So Kaya and her friend were a year younger than
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
And so when they came into high school, I already had the Rob Preuss hair, and then we all had the Rob Preuss hair
But
together.
really, it wasn't my hair.
Yeah,
I mean, I stole it from David Sylvian from Japan, because
that's
me,
true.
Nick Rhodes, and I both looked at David Sylvian and went, "I'll have what he's having." So, because it was like
Yeah, but
blonde, and it had blonde, but like the
yeah,
roots were kind of coming in and stuff, right? And it
yeah,
was a good look for the time. I mean, you
it
can't,
was a good look.
yeah. I mean,
You
it was
know,
of the time.
it was of the time. And you know what else I miss about the time? I was talking to last week's guest about this. He's also born in 65. And
Yeah.
you might know him, Paul Duke. He was like a big DJ
Okay.
um growing up in from this area. Anyway, but we were saying how exciting it was to get dressed in the 80s. Like every day, it's just like the song, every day is Halloween.
Yeah.
Like we were in costume. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't like we were not wearing hoodies and jeans and
That's right.
runners.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There was
the
something different in the
fashion
fashion.
part was
And it's weird because like I feel like if I wasn't in a, my wife always says to like too, like it was an excuse to dress up. And for me, I always felt fortunate that I was a musician, because I don't know if I would have had the nerve to dress up otherwise, and like do my
mhm,
hair the way I did it and wear the clothes I wore. But being in a band gave me like a reason to do it. So
yeah.
it like it gave me permission to say, oh, you can have a haircut that's not the same as everybody else in your high school, because you're a musician and
Mhm,
you listen to music that not everybody listens to. So it felt a little
yeah.
edgy in a way, right? Like now everybody wants to, like, kids are not so individual. Not most kids are not so individual. There seems to
Yeah.
be more homogeneity. Is that the word? Probably.
Yes.
Where they want to fit in because they don't want to stand out and they don't want to like draw attention, which is
Mhm.
weird because everybody also wants to be on social media and like do stupid things like dances and whatever they're doing, you know? So,
Yeah.
but in our teenage years, you would define yourself by how you looked and how you dressed. And if somebody
Mhm,
like was a goth and you dressed all in black and you dyed your hair black and you had eyeliner and all the
yeah.
things, you knew, oh, I guess they listened to The Cure or they listened to whatever, right? So
Yeah.
for me to have like sort of like a new wave look, I thought, I don't know, because I like Gary Newman and I like the Boomtown Rats and I like the Cars. So I'm not really sure what that look is, but we all were able to dress up because it felt like it was a defining thing for us. Which,
Yeah,
yeah,
it really was. And okay, I have to go back to the Germany thing. Like, do you
uh,
remember you'd go there or your relatives would send you a little something to wear and it was just like, oh my God, like now you're like on a totally different level because nobody else had it. That's the other thing.
for sure.
Yeah,
When we went to
it was
Germany with
so
my family, and this, it was Christmas of the year. It was Christmas of '81, and
mm,
before we knew we were going to be going in the studio to record Nova Heart, and we knew that like '82 was going to be the year that we were going to like work even harder. We were going to do our second album, whatever. So for Christmas of '81, we were in Germany, and that's when I discovered, like, I fell in love with Ultravox doing Vienna, and I was listening to Laurie
mm,
Anderson and like all these things that were on the radio in Germany. But I went shopping for clothes as well, and I found this white shirt that I thought, oh my God, this is the perfect thing for me to wear on stage. And I'd never seen anything like it in Canada. So I bought it in Munich and I brought it back, and it was the shirt that I ended up wearing like on our Ari's and Symphonies photos and like in the Nova Heart
yeah,
video. And it was just like a white sort of button up thing. But because
yeah,
I found it in Munich, it felt so much more special and like so exotic, you know, that I took it back and
yeah,
I wore it for all these things. And then Gordon, Sandy, and Derek were like, oh, we got to wear things like that now. Like we're going to put all the white elements together. But I felt like my shirt from Germany sort of gave it this sort of ethnic, exotic sort of thing to bring back to our Canadian roots as well, you know?
yeah.
But
I
you're right.
love it.
It defined us in that way, like that
It
ability to dress
totally
up.
did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I bought in Germany in 80. We were there in 85, I think, or 86. Anyway, acid wash had just come out in Germany, so it wasn't
Yeah.
here yet. And I
Yes.
got these acid wash like balloon pants, and then they
Wow.
had white leather patches like all over them. God, they were so cool. And
Amazing.
then I got the fringe jacket, and yeah, you
Crazy.
just walk down the halls of your high school, you're like, yeah,
That's
I
right.
am the shit.
Right. Exactly. You'd see me in Bravo magazine in Germany. That
Yes,
was the big music
exactly.
magazine.
Yeah, bravo.
Yeah.
Did your mom ever look at Borda, the fashion
Oh
magazine?
my
Do
God.
you
Yeah.
remember Borda?
Of
Yeah, with
course.
all the patterns. My mom used to make me outfits from Borda.
My
Yeah,
mom
so
sewed
cool.
everything for us when I was a little kid. Like she loved making stuff. Like we'd have in
Yeah.
our basement, there was a shelf filled with the patterns. Like when I was, like 12 or whatever, and I wanted overalls because overalls were cool. And all my friends had like nice Levi's or Lee overalls. And then my mom
Yeah.
had to make my overalls. So I had like this home, and they were okay. They were fine, but it was
Yeah.
homemade. It always felt a little bit different. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
my parents used to subscribe. There was some sort of a circle in Hamilton and Ancaster and Dundas and Burlington of German magazines that would get, it was like you would pay some sort of a fee and you'd get the weekly or monthly subscription to all these magazines, and we'd have all these things show up all the time in our house. So they didn't buy the
Oh,
magazine because in those days that's the only way you could get them. Like somebody had to get them to their newspaper distributor, but we
yeah.
would get them all. So they made the rounds and all. Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy.
Oh, so cool. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we're very lucky. We're lucky kids.
Yep,
That's
for
for
sure.
sure. Well, I can't wait till you come visit.
Me too. And I hope I
Nice
see you
to
at one of
meet.
those shows.
Yeah, and I'm gonna start mic shopping so I can do live at Rob Preuss's gig.
All you need is your phone.
Here I am.
Like really, really, the
Yeah,
quality is
that's
good enough.
true.
Yeah, for sure. Do some live streaming like that.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome, Rob. I'm gonna put you in the virtual back room, say goodbye to the folks, but thank you so much again.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody who has tuned in. And I hope I see everybody somewhere, sometime.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching tonight. Amazing conversation with Rob Preuss from the Spoons. Make sure you check him out on Facebook. I'm telling you, it is a GenX Wonderland on his page. He's an amazing guy. And be sure to check out our show sponsor, Brenda Badome at brendabadome.com. Grab yourself some beautiful Canadian clothes. Use the coupon code Get to Know Them for 22% off of your order. And of course, please go check out my business, Glam Jewels, GLAMJULZ.com. Grab yourself some jewels to go with those clothes. And I will see you back here next week with another exciting guest. Thank you so much for tuning in, and keep on showing the world your sparkle. We'll see you back here next week.